The worst floods in the Midwest's recorded history tear a path of devastation through Kansas and Missouri. 400 miles of rivers burst their banks and inundated almost 1 million acres of land.
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget the flood.
And I could see the water actually coming down the street.
I can remember wading in water up to my waist.
My dad came to town that morning and loaded up 2 families, and we were fortunate enough to have bed space and groceries to sustain them until the flood subsided.
Water was so high, I even saw refrigerators floating down the river.
My mother started frying chicken when the alarm went off, and when it got through, the water was up to her knees.
The merchants uptown, of course, lost everything.
I was helping move farm equipment from south of town to north of town just prior to the rains coming. And I'll never forget, take it to my grave, this mass migration of turtles. Never seen anything like that in my life. And by golly, those turtles knew something was coming.
What was Florence like before the flood? A thriving town.
When I was growing up here, every store here had a business in it.
We had 2 or 3 barber shops, 2 drugstores, 3 grocery stores.
Place I wanted to go. I loved the movies.
When we were growing up, there used to be men's ready to wear, ladies ready to wear, 2 banks.
A lot of married people went down there to shop.
My first job was at Hendren's Market, and my job was grinding hamburger. That was my job. And when I'd go to the show to meet my girlfriend on Saturday night, she could still smell that hamburger on me.
When Florence was first incorporated, it was a booming town.
Florence was the first community in this county that the railroads came to.
At that time, the Santa Fe, I believe, was giving away 100 and some acres of land.
The railroad brought worlds of people to town.
We were part of a French settlement some 3 to 5 miles east of town.
To me, this is just a small part of France. To me, it means my heritage. And we used to hold Bastille Day celebrations down in the Grove down here. There were a number of families within the community here. Up at the cemetery, all of our graves decorated with small, miniature French flags.
My dad went to work for the Santa Fe in Florence. I worked on the railroad as a section laborer.
My grandfather was able to cross the border and bring his family with him because of the recruitment that Santa Fe had.
It was very segregated, and the atmosphere in the town was very different towards us.
The Americanos went to the Arnold School for kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. And we went to what they called the Mexican room.
I think the hardest thing was not being able to develop a close friendship with the rest of our classmates.
And they lived in the barrio. And the barrio was on the other side of the railroad tracks.
Well, you know, I grew up in a town of 800, 850. Probably 25% were Mexicans.
People had all the stores and the businesses. That's where their money came from. They came from the people that worked on the railroad.
Oil also helped Florence grow.
About 1919 was the Covert Cellars oil boom about 4 to 5 miles southwest of Florence. That was a big thing. 1921 was the Urshel oil boom.
It did a lot for Florence. It made a city there.
So you had oil and you had the railroad. Plus you had 2 rivers and a lot of pure spring water.
People say, oh, I know where that is. They've got the big water tower that says 99.96% pure spring water.
A lot of stones in the buildings downtown were quarried right down there. I think it would have been interesting back in the turn of the century to see the masons out there working that rock and quarrying it and to build these buildings.
But as soon as they got their oil under control, they just kind of all left.
Just out here in the Urshel field, there were 500 families living out there, and there's no sign of that anymore. Gosh, if those oil fields could have stayed in place, well, they're gone.
The railroad began to diminish their employment because they started with the section crews. And where Florence had 3 sections, they went to 2, and then they went to 1.
Just as we witnessed in my lifetime the development of the horsepower race in cars, so the same thing happened in farm tractors. And where there was people living on every 80 acres or 160 acres, that horsepower race allowed one farmer to simply farm more.
Transportation has probably hurt small towns more than anything. But when you had to hook up a team of horses and you were 3 miles out of town and it took you an hour and a half to get to town, 3 miles, you didn't want to have to travel very far to get groceries. So every little town had their grocery store, had their pharmacy and all that. Just like right now, a lot of people drive to Newton to Walmart.
The railroad at that time went to big mechanized gangs that covered huge areas, and they come in and revamp the track. So there was little need for the local section gangs anymore.
The thing that I regret probably more than anything was when the Santa Fe tore down the brick houses where the people used to live.
Thinking of all the people who lived here, and that included Palacios, the Fieros, and Modesto, the Hernandez, and on, something like that. And I just think about how it was to live here, and the toughness behind it, but the community feeling, not in spite of the toughness behind it. And that's what I'm feeling right now.
The depot was run 24 hours a day, so that was 4 jobs, and then they finally cut that to 1. It's just a general decline, and I think the worst thing that hurt Florence probably was when the schools closed.
Sometimes I really wish the school was here. When I get on the school bus, pretty much the first thought that pops into my head is it's going to be a really long ride.
There was a lot of hard feelings between Florence and Marion, and there's still hard feelings for some people. The kids got along, it was the older people.
People here tend to blame Marion for that, but really it was the state of Kansas making the decision that they couldn't afford to continue to finance a school here. When the grocery store closed, that was kind of a defining moment for Florence.
But I miss going to the grocery store and seeing, hi, Guy, and hi, Jane, and just the contact with someone.
I think the saddest part of it would be our memories. There's nothing here to remind us of anything. But we have our memories pretty well written down. You go downtown and there's nothing there to remind you of anything. All you can remember is what's in your head.
They always were the kind of community that had events to bring people together.
Like our alumni banquet, that's probably the oldest alumni banquet in the state.
People that have left Florence gravitate back to Florence. As you can see from the turnout of this alumni banquet that we've had this evening.
The school closing meant a great loss to me personally, so we are very, very interested in the future. We give 2 scholarships each year to students actually who go to Marion Florence High School.
So we used to have fiestas. Many of the townspeople would come down. Young children would dress in the Mexican colors. And they would do these marches in the barrio that these people had learned in Mexico that they brought back.
I remember the Labor Day celebrations. The parade, always at 11 o'clock.
Every year we have a big crowd.
Nice though to have that energy that comes with people being in town.
These people should have been here yesterday and the day before for the activities. When John and I got married and I first moved up here, this place was like this all 3 days of the Labor Day celebration.
These small towns, they are what made America.
I would really have to say it's the people in this town. They're just awesome.
One thing that can make it special sometimes negatively is everybody knows everybody. They know if you sneeze.
I don't think there's anybody here that wouldn't do something for somebody. I mean, it don't matter who it is.
I know what my kids are doing before they're done doing it, usually. So,
yeah.
And it makes a real safe environment for the kids. That I love. And I have my granddaughter living with us now, so I don't have to worry if I let her go outside and play by herself. And the community watches out for everybody.
So I said, we need to start the Chuck Wagon Men's Club. If somebody needs help, an old lady in town that just can't, I just can't get this washer out of my basement, I'd like to get rid of it, call the Chuck Wagon. Get a hold of John, he'll get some people and they'll take care of it for you. I'm hoping what we can do is clean this lot out, fence it off, and I'd like to turn this into kind of a community garden, like a community vegetable garden.
At the Chuck Wagon, we have a long table that seats about 8 or 9 people. We call it the liar's table because if you're telling a fish story, you know how fish stories are, the fish keeps getting bigger and bigger.
They're just a lot of fun to listen to. Can't tell you everything they say because I just think it's funny.
It's almost like my office in town. And if I have a problem or need to know something, I'll ask somebody there, have you ever worked on the transmission on this 65 truck? Somebody has had the same sort of a problem or knows somebody who had the same sort of problem, so they can tell you how to fix it.
We've never lived in Florence. We've been involved in Florence in different ways. But it's fun to go to lunch at the local restaurant. You know most everybody there. It's just kind of a gathering place for me.
One of the reasons that we opened this place was for somewhere for everyone to go. I have met some great people right here in this bar. I never feel out of place, and I always feel welcome.
The people around here, you have to push them. That's all there is.
And that's why sometimes I just want to say, I'm not doing this anymore. Our main reason for opening the store was just to help the town. As a younger person coming in, I was so motivated and I wanted to see things happen. When the town doesn't support you, you really lose your desire.
But the personality of the town, defeated.
It is frustrating because it just seems like there's a few of us that can see what's going on and there's just so much inertia.
People like to see results. And when something happens that's good, everybody's pumped up for a while. When we have a great Labor Day weekend, if we have something else that goes on in town that, is very positive, everybody's fired up. But all it takes is one little thing to remind them that we have no more grocery store, we have no more school. Here we are, and where are we going, and how are we going to get there?
People that are interested in getting involved and sharing the vision and the goals that you set for your community.
The majority of the town is divided between people who just don't care and people who have been burned over and over again by trying to see things happen.
I hate to say the people's heart is hardened, but I just pray for the people, their heart is just softened by the grace of God.
May I come in?
In this town, they need a person to talk. My goal is to visit every house. When you talk person to person, there is love there.
But it would be nice to have some new young people involved to kind of help take the place of some of them that have been doing it for so many years.
We have had a family move in because they liked the house they found here. And she says, I don't know why nobody wants it. And I said, because it's in Florence, Kansas.
Florence does seem to be stuck in the past and can't seem to get its mind around getting together as one voice to save the town.
I would like to get everybody to see a vision of what the town could be from what it is.
You look at an opportunity, don't say, oh, that won't work. Let's say, okay, let's try this and see if it'll work.
I thought this would be a great place where we could have an artist community to really generate or regenerate the town as a whole.
I can see new paved sidewalks and the old-fashioned street lights and the cute little quaint shops with the big windows and all decorated up.
You had Dollar General open, and then you could put an Orscheln's or a farm store next to it. That would be the biggest boost, shot in the arm for this community that we've had in 20 years.
There are a lot of companies that could come in here. You have rail, you have highways, you have good water supply.
I would love to restore the depot. I would like to see all these buildings occupied again.
I don't even think we probably have even 5 years because the buildings are in such bad shape. Each year they just keep getting worse.
But we really would like to get a business in and be a part of the community.
And it would be fun to be a part of that, to be able to be contributing to something that's bringing the community together and back to life.
We have to be able to believe in Florence and what we can do here to make those things happen.
My dream is to come back to Florence and open up my own accounting firm.
Les quiero decir a la comunidad que sigan trabajando para que se acerquen todos como una familia.
My mother will probably never close. This is where she first started waiting tables. Her mother worked here. She'll just keep it on, keep it open and just keep going.
It's just a matter of those people there that have the resilience to stay there and make the town either a strong town or let it go into the wind.
Will you go into the wind with no trace of where you've been, or find a new way to begin? Will you learn to grow again?
Cradled by foothills around, cool pure water from the ground.
With your people strong and sound, like the bricks and stone that built this town.
Water brought life to this place.
Raging water slowed your pace, washed away dreams of better times, whistling down that railroad line. Yet you did not disappear. You held on and you're still here.
You sail upon the tall grass seas,
your sails filled with Flint Hills breeze. Will you go into the wind, or find a new way to begin, and learn to grow again? Or will
area of Florence, which is still an integral part of the Flint Hills and the cowboy way of life.
But I really love Florence.
Well, Florence is, even though it's just 10 miles away, it's been a part of my life, I think. I enjoyed the times I went there, and I still hope that it can make it.
Look at me. I made it.
Florence and the area, it's something I'd miss the rest of my life. Been all over, but this is still the best place I've been.
When I'm on Highway 50 and I look at that sign that says 1870 is when Florence was settled and everything, and I'm thinking, good girl.